That's John Lurie and Vesuvio's. 12:08 the time on an absolutely gorgeous day here along the western coast, and in particular Southern California's coastline, and even more in particular and more specifically Laguna Beach, California. Welcome across the globe, across the nation. It's moved on from the Mornings with Ed show. We are now rolling right into the afternoon. Voice of Laguna, and delighted to have great conversations all day. My thanks to Dr. Anita Wong for our regular 11 a.m. Conversation on Monday. A very special thing is happening at the end of this month at the Laguna Beach Cultural Arts Center. It's April 29th, a panel discussion on something that we have been discussing here in Laguna Beach for quite a while, and that's the plastic detox that is moving away from plastics. Southern California's director of Beyond Plastics is Susan Keefe. Welcome in for the conversation, Susan. How are you?
Thank you so much, Ed. I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm delighted to have you. Did I describe everything correctly?
You absolutely did.
Okay.
Yes.
So the director, you're Southern California's director of Beyond Plastics. Mm-hmm. What is the mission of your organization?
Yeah, so Beyond Plastics' mission is to end plastic pollution everywhere.
Okay.
It's a pretty lofty goal.
It is a lofty goal. Every morning I literally see beach walkers that come back past the radio station with bags loaded with plastic that would eventually be in the ocean and choking the whales.
Yes, sadly, plastic always finds its way to water.
Right.
Especially plastic that's in our environment. I mean, if it's in a secure landfill, hopefully, but all it has to do is fall off a truck on the way to landfill and roll into a gutter, and next thing you know, it's in our creeks and rivers and water in our ocean. Or
the wind blow one of those really cheesy cheese wrappers that the individual sliced cheese anywhere. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It drives me nuts. What got you into this? You had done something else in a previous life, and now...
Oh, I sure had.
Okay.
In addition to my brief career in media in Philadelphia, I spent almost 3 decades working for a company called Oracle.
Okay.
I was a high-tech leader for Oracle and decided to leave in 2021 to focus on my environmental impact and concerns. I've always been an environmentalist and a steward, but I really wanted to spend this next chapter of my life doing more to really help our environment.
Even in your early days at Oracle, were you aware that plastic was choking the universe?
Not as much as I am now.
Right.
No. Of course, we all. I knew that plastic was a nuisance, that plastic was polluting, but like most people, I thought I could use it and recycle it.
Right.
I've learned that that's definitely not the case.
Right.
So
here, we in Laguna Beach in particular, single-use plastic has been banned. But is even non-single-use plastic, the stuff that we use, is that detrimental to the environment?
Well, it depends on what you mean by non-single-use plastic. I mean, plastic's made from fossil fuels, but it's fossil fuels and chemicals. So all plastic is toxic, right? It's made with ethane, single-use plastic, which is a byproduct of fossil fuels.
Right.
It's basically free, right? So this is done through fracking. And so this byproduct, the petrochemical and fossil fuel industries have said, oh my gosh, look at all this free stuff we have. We can make it into plastic. But you can't just take ethane and make it into plastic. You have to add polymers and you have to have chemicals. 16,000 plus chemicals that are part of making plastic. And most of these, Ed, have never been studied.
Right.
We know that there's about 4,000 of those chemicals that are considered to be hazardous, and that's what the film is about. And those are chemicals, you've probably heard of PFAS. That's a whole group of chemicals. They're called forever chemicals. Phthalates and bisphenols. You may have heard of bisphenols from BPA, where you'll see, there's no BPA in this can. Unfortunately, there's still BPA and bisphenols, again, a class of chemicals that are in plastic. So no, I never realized this many years ago when I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to really use much plastic. Now I don't really want to use any, which is incredibly difficult and actually not realistic. I mean, my car has plastic in it. My phone that's next to me has plastic in it. I don't consider that as single-use plastic. But 50% of all the plastic that's produced, and this past year, I believe we produced 450 million tons of plastic, which is up from 2 million tons back in the 50s. So we're producing
staggering number.
a staggering amount of plastic. 50% of that is single-use plastic.
And it becomes, for me, I'm coming out of left field with this next one, but it's almost a moral issue.
Yes.
When plastics were first being manufactured, it was to make windshields for bombers and World War II's effort. It was all of that. Do you think they knew back then that it was killing us?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
I absolutely do. I mean, it was very intentional in the 50s, really, after the war.
Right.
That became the era of throwaway living, you know, where suddenly there were ads with plastic. And I don't know if you remember seeing that ad with the stork and the baby inside this cellophane wrap. I mean, it was now horrifying to think about, right?
Right.
But, you know, we had the
Yes,
the
I remember now.
right?
Now
it was
it's
very
all coming back to
famous,
me, yes.
right? And we knew, you know, the scientists, the chemists knew then that these products had problems, right? They had chemicals, they were hazardous, they're not recyclable, they never have been, and they never will be. Right. But they've done a really good job of a disinformation campaign for the past 60 some odd years. In fact, I'm not sure if you're aware that our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, filed the first of its kind ever massive lawsuit against ExxonMobil in December of 2024 for deceiving Californians for decades and decades about the recyclability of plastic. So it's very harmful. But I think the big difference is that, I mean, you know, back when I lived in Philadelphia, I used to collect something called Bakelite radios. Do you remember those?
I don't.
They were actually made from formaldehyde.
Oh, okay.
Was one of the main ingredients. But it was one of the first plastics ever, one of the first synthetic plastics ever created. And they were cool. They came in all these beautiful colors. You could get like Bakelite jewelry and all this stuff. So plastic has had a place in our lives for years.
Right.
But plastic went from being a manufactured product, as we kind of talked about a few minutes ago, to a product that people are using for a couple minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. You know, we have this event where I live in Tustin called the Chili Cook-Off. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I haven't been to that one, but I've been to many.
Yeah, apparently this is the largest in the world, and this is what they say. I don't know if that's true. 35 to 40,000 people come every June for this, or maybe it's July. Anyway, it's in the summer. They come every June, I believe, and it is a single-use plastic nightmare because they're putting those little tiny cups, putting a little sample of chili in a little fork. Somebody gobbles it down and throws it away. I did back of the napkin math, 1 million pieces of plastic at one event. One event. Which fortunately they're going to change that this year because I've been on them for the past few years about it.
And what will they switch to?
Fiber.
Okay.
So basically, fiber is agricultural waste. It's like that brown paper. It's like almost looks like corrugated cardboard. But it comes from things like sugar cane, and it's like the byproduct. So you can make that into not terribly attractive, you know, pieces of disposable foodware, but it will biodegrade, and you actually can put it in the organics recycling bin as well. Once it touches food, it can go into the recycling bin. That's really the only kind of disposable that can go in the recycling bin that isn't food.
We have on this program, or in the morning show, we've been talking about microplastics, and that during autopsies they are finding millions of microplastics in the brain, and apparently that's where it goes.
Yes, it can go to the brain. I mean, I think the big study came out about a year ago where micro and microplastics are about the size of a grain of salt, and nanoplastics are even smaller than that. And they're both really problematic because we can, you know, eat them, we can breathe them, they're in the soil.
They're in the fish we eat because
the plankton's eating the microplastics. It's a huge problem. So yes, it crossed the blood-brain barrier and ended up, they've done autopsies of patients and they've linked that to cardiovascular disease and
Alzheimer's,
right. and autism and
right.
all kinds of really, terrible diseases. Microplastics has been found in every part of our bodies, everywhere. Our blood, it's been found in the placenta, it's been found in testes,
right.
it's been found in babies.
Right.
It's been found everywhere in our bodies, and so there isn't an exact causation because that's how science works, right? We've only been studying this for a decade or so, and a lot of the studies have really become prevalent in the last few years, but it's extremely concerning.
Do you ever wake up and say, I'm fighting a losing battle?
Sometimes.
All right. And 100 years from now, if you envision human society 100 years from now, are we still going to be using plastics? Or will we have learned anything?
I really hope we have. I mean, so yes, it's a daunting topic,
right.
and it is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. But I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't hopeful.
Right.
I am wired to be optimistic,
right.
But that's not the same as hope.
Right.
To me, hope is more radical. Hope is a muscle you have to keep working at. You know, I think Jane Fonda came out and said that recently, like, hope is a muscle. You got to work it every day.
Right.
But I have hope when I see people making changes, not just in their own life, but taking the time to submit comments to a city council meeting, or actually show up at a city council meeting, or show up at a book talk. We wrote a book, the organization I work for wrote a book last year, and it was released in December, and I had my book talk at this little tiny bookstore, independent bookstore in Tustin, and 28 people showed up 3 days after Christmas. That gave me a lot of hope.
Okay.
I was stunned, actually, that many
Right.
people. I said either no one will be here, or there might be a couple people that show up.
Right.
And so there's things like that do bring me hope, because I think it's all about education, and then it's about that awareness, and then what do people do with that awareness besides taking action maybe in their own lives to detox themselves from plastic,
Right.
but also seeing how they can help with the real thing that we need, which is what Beyond Plastics focuses on, systemic change. Right? How do we start to change things at the local government level? Maybe start with our communities, local government, state government, and federal government, which at this point is a bit of a lost cause.
We'll have to wait a while.
We'll
for
have
that.
to wait, but we're not. But we can do things. We
Right.
can do things without, regardless of what the federal government is doing.
Right.
There are absolutely things we can do today.
Well, they're allowing more fracking right now.
Oh, a lot
They've-
more fracking.
They've opened up more fracking and more. They're capitulating and catering to big oil.
Absolutely. In fact, today there's EPA hearings, and two of my colleagues, including the founder of Beyond Plastics, spoke at those hearings on the EPA, which basically is all about what they're doing with incineration, with chemicals, with something called pyrolysis, which is where they add more chemicals to plastic to make a little bit of fuel, and trying to make that all sort of count towards recycling, which is preposterous.
Is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about what recycling is, like, what is it? It's using less of our natural resources it's using less of our natural resources to actually, produce something without going back to those natural resources. Like I tell people, an aluminum can is a great example. Right. Aluminum can become another aluminum can. That is a great use of recycling. But recycling really still uses a lot of energy, right? It's not like it's just this easy thing.
Uncrack the can and it becomes another can.
You have to collect it, you have to sort it, you have to clean it, and then you have to take it somewhere to recycle it. Well, with plastic, it's even more complicated, right? So the industry is coming up with all these different things, like incineration, which has been around for 50 years, but let's call it waste to fuel. That's also been around for 50 years, right? So they're trying to constantly make the old new again,
right?
And it's always been a failure.
I showed you a bottle of water
You did.
that appears plastic.
Yes.
Yet it says 100% landfill degradable. That instead of 700 years in a landfill, it's totally degraded in 7 years. And you were very skeptical about this bottle of water.
Extremely.
Why so?
Because it is, at this point, and I do believe in innovation. I worked in tech for almost 30 years. It is pretty much impossible to make that plastic bottle from something that's going to break down in that short of a time, because you are going to have to use plastic polymers, probably PET, which is number one plastic in what's used for most water bottles.
Okay.
It's the only plastic we have any chance of recycling a little teeny bit, once or twice, because the plastic deteriorates. But as we talked about earlier, that plastic is going to break up into smaller pieces. It is never going to fully go away.
It will eventually become the micro and nanoplastics that we spoke of.
Exactly. And this whole concept of bioplastics is highly problematic, which is why if you call the local waste hauler, they will say we don't want any bioplastics in the organic stream because they don't break down. They just don't. Because you have to add traditional fossil fuels and chemicals to make that bottle what it looks like. There's no technology today to not do that.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. I
Yeah,
appreciate
of course.
that. I also held up, and I've got it all here, I guess. I held up a boxed water.
Yes.
Which I, for the longest time, thought, well, there's my answer. It's a box of water.
Yeah.
But there's plastic inside.
There is.
Okay.
There is. There's actually multiple layers, and that makes it extremely difficult to recycle it because it has paper, it has wax, it has plastic. It may or may not have wax. I have to look at that exact container. And it has a plastic lid.
Right.
And there's often metal in there as well. So imagine the cost to break all those pieces into their, individual parts and recycle it. It's economically not feasible, and it will never happen.
So is the answer, and I'm going to stay with the box for a second,
Yes.
and then I'm going to move on to probably what the real answer is.
Yes.
But if I were a manufacturer of boxed water, would the answer be to make it only wax on the inside, or would that be not successful?
It would be really challenging because you still have a plastic lid.
Okay.
And typically you still need something to give it its structure. So that's where the metal comes in. It's really difficult. The best thing, you could do is make it out of aluminum, which there are aluminum, waters, which are good.
Right.
What we advocate for, of course, is reuse and refill.
Right.
And the box water people and the aseptic cartons and the gable top cartons, which is what that thing is made of, they're not too happy that we being myself and other environmentalists said these things cannot carry the recycling label. They're not recycled in the state of California, really anywhere at any scale, and so you hopefully don't see a recycling label on that, but even if you do, that will change in October.
Okay. And in getting, and I do not see a recycling label. Oh, interesting.
Good job, box water.
I don't see a recycling label on
That's
this.
good.
And in order to have gotten that done, you had to face an enormous uphill climb against big money.
Yes, namely the Carton Council.
There's a council for cartons?
There's a council for everything, Ed. There is a council for everything. And they had convinced the state of California that their products were widely recyclable. And fortunately, some of us spoke out. There's an article in the LA Times about it last year. And they rolled that back.
Okay.
Well, so the state of California, through Cal Recycle, rolled it back and said, no, these items are not recyclable in the state of California.
So congratulations there.
Thank you.
That's a huge victory.
It was not just me. I was just one of many. But
oh, don't be modest. It was just her. So beyond plastics.
Yes.
And I want to talk about the movie on Netflix in just a moment, but
absolutely.
If a listener out there, and I'm seeing just a ton of texts come over about people that are obviously supporting the cause, how can they support Beyond Plastics beyond their own personal lives?
Yeah. Well, you could support the organization Beyond Plastics by buying our book.
Okay.
It's called The Problem with Plastic.
Okay.
And What You Can Do About It.
All right.
So it's a handbook.
Okay.
It basically goes through the history of plastic, which I very briefly described.
Right.
It talks about the harms of plastic, not just the environmental harms, but the chemical harms and the harms to the human body. But then it gives you a good handbook of what you can do about it, both in your own home, by detoxing yourself from plastic as much as possible,
right?
And then what you can do in your communities and your cities and
again, by showing up to meetings.
By showing up, exactly. By engaging and being aware and not just accepting that we all have to live with all this plastic. We never voted for all this plastic.
Right. It just became a natural part of our existence.
It unfortunately did.
Without us even knowing.
And the petrochemical industries and fossil fuel industries are banking on it, especially when we started moving towards renewables and electrical cars and electrical appliances. The production of plastic skyrocketed. COVID really helped with that.
Well, I'm sure it did.
Right, because everything was wrapped in plastic. We were afraid to touch anything.
Right.
And somehow that made us feel safer.
Okay. Let's talk about, just a side note here, that for a long time, the filters on cigarettes had plastics in them.
Yeah.
The tobacco company also saw a way to cheapen the cigarette, the manufacturing of cigarettes, by adding a little plastic to the filters.
And I think I've never smoked, but both of my parents smoked a lot. So I guess I smoked through them. Most cigarettes still have plastic filters.
They keep them, and they keep them fresher by putting them and wrapping them in plastic.
Exactly.
As well. So,
it's plastic on plastic. And actually, what we're seeing with the plastic industry, when I say plastic industry, I mean both fossil fuels and petrochemical, is not that different than what we saw with the tobacco industry. Right. It's the same playbook.
Right.
2026, and we've got the same exact thing going on.
How to be evil in the modern era.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's right. And how to mislead people and make it our fault.
Right.
Make it our fault. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be accountable. Of course, we have to be accountable. We want convenience. Is it more convenience to go get red Solo cups for my picnic?
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
But is it the right thing to do? No.
Right.
But it's not really, there's many things that are not within our control. Like I brought you a little chocolate bar today that is not wrapped in plastic, which is hard to find. I go to the Whole Foods and 90% of the food is wrapped in plastic. I don't have any control over that specifically, but I can do what I can to buy my lettuce loose and not in a clamshell. And, there's things we can do.
Thank you, by the way, for this.
You're welcome.
It looks delicious. Thank you.
It's a very good one.
All right. I'll be sure and munch on it at the first possible moment. Netflix is currently showing your movie. It's called The Plastic Detox.
Yes.
Tell us about that, first of all.
Well, it's not our movie.
Okay.
We are just co-sponsoring.
Okay.
We're one of the organizations that's been allowed to show and screen the film.
Okay.
So we did not make the film. We're not in the film.
Okay.
There's a wonderful woman named Shauna Swain. I hope I got her name right. She's an epidemiologist. I believe she lives in San Francisco, where I lived for most of my life in that area. And she follows 6 couples and goes through understanding why they have unexplained infertility. And now people have said to me, well, that's such a small sample size. I'm like, okay, but it's not about that. This is a story that's based on years and years of science and reports, right? This is a story. Because if we just did a film about, all this science, I think most people would turn out.
Right.
They wouldn't even tune in, rather, right?
And the naysayers, by the way, are just looking for excuses for their own laziness.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
Okay.
And so this is a really compelling film. I watched it. I got an early preview before it went live on Netflix on March 16th. And it's pretty compelling.
What's the commonality with the 6 couples?
They just have unexplained fertility, and they use a lot of plastic in their lives. They wear plastic. I mean, if you wear polyester clothing, you're wearing plastic.
Right.
If you wear nylon, you're wearing plastic. If you have elastine and any kind of synthetics, even to extent viscose, which comes from rayon and bamboo, but that can also have plasticizers in it. So it's really hard to avoid plastic in our lives. But the most important thing, and this is what they focus on in the film, is how we can stop eating so much plastic and drinking so much plastic.
Right.
So starting with our kitchens, starting with our laundry, starting with, what we're, when we go out and we get takeout food, that says microwave safe, and then we stick it in the microwave. Heat is really, really bad for plastic. It's not inert. These chemicals are not inert. And the only reason it says microwave safe is because it won't melt in the microwave. But that doesn't mean it's safe for us.
Right. It doesn't mean that it won't leach into the food.
It will leach into the food.
Right.
Especially if that food is fatty. So there's different things that cause more or less leaching. Right. But heat is definitely something. That's why every time I see people, coaches or families out like in the sun on the beach or at the park with these huge things of water in plastic bottles baking in the sun, I'm like, what are you doing? It's just so bad. So that's what the film does, is it follows the journey of these 6 couples and then, kind of shows what happens after they've done some detoxing.
I am substantially more cynical than you, and I'll still continue with the thought, my God, what an uphill battle this is.
It is an uphill battle.
I cannot imagine. So let me show a bright side.
Many of my colleagues think I'm crazy.
Let me show a bright side to my cynicism here.
Sure.
In the last 10 years, or in the last however many years that you've been observing this,
yes,
have you noticed with the rest of humanity, are we getting better? Are we getting more educated, or are we becoming lazier?
I think it just depends. Either people want to be educated or they don't, right? I mean, the information is out there. Even if you weren't interested in this topic, most people, I'm sure most of your listeners have heard the term microplastics. Yeah. Whereas 5 years ago, I don't think that was the case, right? So whether they want to follow that and learn more about it and believe it or not believe it is a different story, right? But these things are becoming much more mainstream. And that gives, as I said, it gives me a lot of hope. I think that we've seen changes throughout the state of California, recycling aside, which is my biggest pet peeve, but we've seen cities really change what is allowed in those cities. Laguna has done that, but Laguna still has a lot of work to do.
What do we have left to do in Laguna?
Plastic cups are everywhere.
Right.
I see plastic cups all over. I just have to walk up and down the beach. The restaurants literally serving water in a plastic cup or soda in a plastic cup.
And that's an enforcement issue because the law is there. No single-use plastics, but you see them, and that's an enforcement issue.
Well, the law allows plastic cups and lids.
Right. Oh,
yes.
It doesn't allow restaurants to serve them,
It
though, right?
does.
It does.
It considers them recyclable.
Okay.
Which is not true.
Okay.
We do not have a single factory on the West Coast that would ever recycle a plastic cup. So one of the ways I kind of came onto the national scene here is I investigated Starbucks in 2024.
Okay.
Myself and another woman in Laguna Niguel, we glued air tags into Starbucks cups in Orange County and followed them directly to the landfill. Why did we target Starbucks? Well, they're the largest coffee chain in the world.
Right.
And also, they went above and beyond. They actually had custom recycling bins that said, put your cold plastic cups here, as if they had some magic factory that was going to recycle them. So we shared that story with CBS, and they ran it across the nation, proving that Starbucks was lying.
Very cool. You're not allowed in a Starbucks now, right?
There's a picture of me in the back.
If you see this woman, chase her out.
Yes, and so
good work, by the way.
Thank you.
Good work.
Well, I like investigating, especially corporations that are misleading their customers.
Right.
And so that's where I think we need to do a better job here in Laguna. Plastic cups are not. We don't need to use plastic cups. We shouldn't be using plastic cups, and we shouldn't be serving coffee in cups that are lined in plastic. Because that's a hot liquid going into, a paper cup, but they're almost always lined in plastic.
And this question, I already know the answer. How do we legislate morality? Because, Starbucks knew that, and it took you uncovering that in order for them Was there a lawsuit involved? And how do we legislate morality if there's not?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to legislate morality. I mean, I don't know of any lawsuits specifically with Starbucks, but there have been other lawsuits with other things I've been involved in.
Right.
They were embarrassed.
Right.
And the one change that they made was that in cities where there were local laws banning plastic, not in Laguna. I don't know if there's a Starbucks in Laguna. Is there?
There is one right up the street.
Oh, I
yeah.
should go check that out.
You should.
I want to see what they're serving
I
in.
definitely want to.
I don't think Laguna was affected, but say Berkeley, for example, Cupertino, where I just did a talk last week. Various cities across California and across the country where they had plastic bans saying no plastic cups, no plastic lids. They had to comply. So about 2 months after the story aired, Starbucks came back and said, okay, in these 520 stores in 14 states,
Right.
which wasn't the whole state, it was the city's local law compliance.
Right.
That happened as the result. So they, no one knew they were breaking the law because no one was inspecting it. Right. And that's the biggest thing. We have to inspect what we expect from our laws. And if no one's inspecting it, like in the case of Laguna, right, like we think there's a single-use plastic ban, but I can walk to that pizza place just down the street and there are plastic cups right on the counter, right on the beach.
Right.
So
So it does become a matter of enforcement at that point.
it becomes a matter of enforcement. And that's not about morality. It's just about doing the right thing and enforcing the laws that we taxpayers paid, legislators, whether local,
Right.
city, state, to pass these laws, they should be enforced.
Right. Agreed, 1,000%. So when you see I want to get back to the movie.
Oh, yes.
And the event. And
We digress.
No, that's okay. That's what this is about here. And the event on April 29th. And we'll talk about the panelists
Yeah.
and the panel discussion as well. But when do you ever have an opportunity to go out onto the ocean? And
I go every week, two
There you
or
go.
3 times a week.
There you go.
Yep.
And the amount of plastic that you see,
It's staggering.
it's sad.
It's sad.
it
It's
is-
staggering, and it's mostly in pieces.
Right.
You know,
it is mostly those little thin cheese wrapper things.
Yeah, or the actual little pieces. People bring those. They celebrate something, and this is my pet peeve. And my husband's always like, "Don't say anything."
Right.
But they have those like plastic rose petals.
Yes. Yeah.
And they throw them everywhere, and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
God!
Yeah.
Just bring like actual real flowers that are real.
I spend time on the kayak, and most of that time is spent, instead of relaxing out on the ocean.
Yes.
It's picking up Mylar balloons and the plastic ribbon on it. and
That's
all that.
right.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the book we wrote, there's a reference to 1.7 trillion pieces of plastic, which are way more stars than there are in the sky,
Right.
are in our ocean. And that number is supposed to double between the year 2019 and 2030 if nothing is done about it. So it's really problematic. And 80% of what's in the ocean that's considered a pollutant is plastic. And again, those plastics have chemicals, which also attract other chemicals in our atmosphere, right? And it's really
on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Fish are eating them.
Yes.
The things we eat are eating them,
That's
and then
right.
we are then consuming them.
That's right.
And again, I'll ask you the cynical guy question: if in a perfect world, how do we clean those oceans up? What responsibility do we lay upon those that are causing the problem,
Right.
the petrochemical companies,
Yes.
to take responsibility and start to actually clean those oceans?
Yeah. That's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of different companies, third-party companies that are going out there and cleaning the ocean. There's obviously organizations like Surfrider that go out and do these, the beach cleanups and things like that. But
Right.
what I think we really need to do is turn off the tap. Or turn down the tap.
Right.
We need to not to be a full open tap of plastic production, but more of a trickle.
Right.
And
That's a start. That's a start.
Correct. As far as cleaning it, most plastic sinks to the bottom of the ocean, Ed. That's the sad thing, and it's really difficult to clean. But the great thing about nature is that it can and will rebuild itself if we give it time to do that.
Once we're gone.
But even
Yeah.
while we're here,
Right.
imagine. I mean, I have 3 children. I want them to inherit a world better than, I found it when I was young. And I see there's definitely hope for that. But I think that we just really need to open our eyes and see what's going on all around us. We can't just pick up the plastic on the beach and think that our job is done.
Right.
I mean, we should pick it up.
Right.
We shouldn't just walk over it.
Right.
If we see a plastic bottle, we should pick it up. We see I pick up stuff all the time, but I'm not fooling myself thinking that that's all there is to do. Right? There's a lot more work that needs to happen.
Yeah, I'm the believer in that humanity is the one species that just screwed everything up, and it's not going to fix itself until we're gone.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that many humans are inherently good.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. You and maybe 3-4 other people.
And maybe that's because I'm wired to be an optimist. But I do think that when people, and yes, I think people are cynical and people go, well, wait a minute, but how can I as one person make a difference? Well, it has to start somewhere. And those small things really add up.
I'll go to the beach and I'll scream at a kid. Okay, drop the shovel. Drop the shovel. Drop the pail now. Drop the pail. Down on your face. All right. Yeah.
I love it.
All right. So April 29th, we are together at the Laguna Beach Cultural Arts Center. We are together.
That's right. Doors open at 5:30. Okay. We're going to show the full film.
Okay.
It's an hour and a half long.
Okay.
So the film starts at 6. It's over at 7:30. I guess I haven't been to the Art Center yet. I'm going to go there after this.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I can't wait. So I think you could get drinks and things like that.
Yeah.
The tickets are free. Okay. A donation is requested, obviously, for the Art Center, but the tickets for the film are free. And then afterwards, we're going to have a really interesting panel.
Okay.
I'll introduce the film at the very beginning when people arrive. But then afterwards, we're going to have a discussion and take questions from the audience. And Ed, this is where you come in. So I'm excited to have you moderate. And I'm really thrilled to be joined by two incredible individuals. So Kurt Bjorkman, who's the COO.
Right.
At the ranch at Laguna. I went out there last week and I got a tour, and I'm beyond impressed.
Right.
Usually when people say, "Oh, we're sustainable," I'm a little cynical.
Right.
I'm like, how do you define the sustainable? Well, they're doing things that they're doing all the right things.
Right. No other property in town is doing what they're doing. No other property along the West Coast, really.
No, I don't know of a single There are some ocean-friendly restaurants and resorts, of course.
Right.
But to do what the ranch is doing is setting a high bar into what we should all strive to do.
Right.
So I'm very excited to have Kurt on the panel. And then in addition to Kurt, Council Member Kathleen Tresader from the city of Irvine is going to be joining us.
Okay.
She is an internationally known climate scientist. She's one of the first people that I personally supported for council, even though I don't live in Irvine. I was like, you know what? We need a climate scientist in Orange County.
Yeah, we do.
And so I got to know her quite well.
We need a climate scientist on every council.
Every council.
Right.
Yes. So that was I moved here 6 years ago. So that was about when she ran. She's up for re-election now. And she's terrific. So she'll be talking, we can ask her scientific questions. I mean, I can answer some, but of course she has the background.
I'm bringing this with me.
You bring that. Yeah. We'll see what she says.
All right, yes.
And she's also a professor at UCI.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if the petrochemical industry would send a representative?
You know what? They might. They sent plenty of representatives a couple years ago when the city of Irvine tried to ban single-use plastic. And it failed miserably.
Okay.
Because they sent representatives and they put the fear of businesses like this is going to hurt your business.
Of course they did.
The doom, the gloom, the expense, and it didn't pass.
Okay.
So yes, if they get wind of this, they might send someone.
All right. Well, I'd love.
We'll be prepared.
I'd love to ask them the questions that we're discussing right now, and that we'll be seeing during the plastic detox showing.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah. All right. And if someone, again, wanted to get in touch with you or assist Beyond Plastics in a larger mission, in a larger way, how do they do that?
So they could go to beyondplastics.org, where you'll find my information. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Susan Keefe. You can message me there. But if you go to Beyond Plastics, you'll be able to find my email and send me a note.
Okay. And absent all of that, you can, is it a registration for the Laguna Beach Cultural Arts Center?
Yeah, so you go to their website.
Laguna Beach Cultural Arts Center.
And you'll go to click on events and scroll down and you'll see the plastic detox, and it'll have all the information and RSVP link right there.
Okay.
And it's limited seating.
Yes.
So I know quite a few people that have already signed up. So if you'd like to go, and I hope your listeners are interested in learning more, then please RSVP soon.
It's on April 29th at the Laguna Beach Cultural Arts Center, and we'll be running spots for it between now and then in case you miss any of the information. I strongly suggest you tune into Netflix and catch the Plastic Detox. Maybe before that, and see it a second time while you're there.
Absolutely.
All right. Susan Keefe, Southern California Director of Beyond Plastics. Delightful conversation. I'm really looking forward to April 29th.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Let's do this often.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. 12:48 the time, 12 minutes shy of 1 o'clock. It's the Voice of Laguna.
Voice of Laguna. We'll be right back.
Fine jewelry created by an artist. Custom